Come on, I got you. Ready? We're gonna count to 3 and you go, okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3, go! 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 I got you. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Just go. Daddy got you. Say, there's nothing that I can't do when I put my mind to it. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, go. Yeah!
I keep trying to tell them, man, that trap money good while it lasts. But how long will it last? Let's go. I don't think they hear me. 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 Mic check 1, 2. I don't think they hear me. I don't think they hear me. I don't think they hear me. Let's go. He say he paid the cost to be the boss. He want that new big top off. He say he burn the block, hot sauce. He say the world is his, but look at what it costs. Let's go.
All right, family. The Urban 100 is back. That 100, make some noise up in this studio. Let's go, let's go. We see you at home. We see you. I see you at home. All right, so first thoughts, Queen Moore. How you feel about that? What are your initial thoughts? You feel like that's an overstatement?
No, I think it's perfect, honestly. There are some genuinely good black men, whether they grew up with a father or without a father in the home, that stepped up and said, you know what, whether I was married to the mother or not, I have a child, I'm going to do what's best. I'm going to do what my father didn't do for me, or I'm going to role model the father that I had or the men in my life that I had. And there are some really good, amazing black fathers. But there's a strong majority of them that don't. And I know firsthand, I have a former spouse who, he struggles with this. So, I think it's a perfect statement to put that too many don't know how to be fathers. Too many black men don't know how to be fathers.
All right, let's go to Miguel. We're going to skip Tony Swell because we know he's going to bring the flame. So Miguel, what are your thoughts? You feel like that's overstatement? You feel like that's too firm? That's not true? Or you feel like that's right on the money? What are your thoughts about that?
Oh yeah, I think it's right on the money, exactly on the money, because a lot of the fathers nowadays definitely, grew up not even knowing how to even raise another child or anything like that.
Tony Swell, what you think, Kim?
I believe, because a lot of my friends and people that I know in my community, that's what we lack in is knowing how to be a father. Because what we think is being a father is taking your kid maybe to McDonald's or getting the latest Jordans or PlayStation, and that does make a kid happy, but it don't really teaches that kid how to grow up and become a grown man. It's kind of like it's mostly like basically just pacifying him. So that's what I felt like that in a lot in my life too. Not really spending that time to know who my kid is, because I'm so busy trying to run in the streets to make this money to be able to make not only my kid happy, but basically shut that baby mama's mouth up.
So
yeah, you know what I'm saying?
That's real.
Yeah.
So let's kind of chop about it. Why do you feel like, or actually let's start here. Do you think that this is a challenge that faces ethnic groups beyond black people in the same way? Or do you feel like we have it's pretty much the worst in the black community? Or do you feel like, no, everybody got the same problem? There are really no fathers around at all. Or do you feel like, no, it's more of an issue with our community? What do y'all think?
I think it's levels to it. I mean, I think every ethnic group has grown up without a lack of a father here and there, but I think for our Black community, we struggle with this, and we can say, well, if the white man didn't pull our men out of the home and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
But my thing is, when does it become a moral thing instead of, I didn't have a dad, so I'm just going to treat, my baby mom or my wife or my kids the way that, he did, or if he was there, he was abusive or whatever. But when does it become a moral thing that I made this life, I'm going to take care of it and do whatever I have to do, any means necessary, instead of just saying, okay, I never had the example. But you can create your own example by just saying, I knew what it was like growing up without a dad, so I don't want my son or my daughter to grow up in that same manner.
So why do you think, why do you think that there's such a lack of Black fathers who actually think like that? Because I can remember having a hard conversation with a family member of mine who had told me, he's like, I got baby number 3 or 4 coming, you know what I mean? And he was glad to say that. And, anytime God says yes to a baby, God has to say yes to that life. But I was feeling some kind of way because I'm like, bro, you got 2 other kids and you're not involved in that kid's life. So I'm kind of in a hard space because I want to celebrate what God said yes to, but at the same time, this is likely going to be a 3rd baby and you're not going to be there. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, okay, I agree with you. It's like, it's not rocket science to know if you made a baby, then you have a responsibility to do more than just make that baby, right? What do y'all think, Kings?
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely think that. And I definitely think, like really the whole, with the Black guys, going to prison, like most of that is definitely messing up like all the young kids growing up, because they just seeing all the fathers in jail and everything, and they don't even know nothing growing up.
So really, and to me it's crazy because you're right, and I feel like, anybody who knows me well knows that I'm big on being vocal about politics, and I take great issue primarily with the Democrat Party. I'm not a Republican. I am a constitutional conservative. There's a difference. But I feel like the Democrat Party is to blame, in my opinion, for so much of that. Now, some would say, well, the war on drugs and drugs being infused into Black communities, is a massive part of why we see so many fathers, in prison. I think there's a lot that can be said there, but at the end of the day, it's like if we as a people at some point don't say, listen, we got to do the right thing, right? Like, it's time for us to get serious about what we are responsible to do. And nobody's making me sell drugs to hustle. Nobody's making me make babies. Nobody's forcing me to do the wrong thing, although, of course, we have so many influences that contribute in these directions. But you're right, I think prison plays a major role. But I think that young queens gotta be smarter as well and say, look, like, why would I give myself to a young man, a dude, who he just got out of prison and he's not taking care of the kids that he got, right? Like, we got to stop being so delicate and sensitive and actually just be real about what it's going to take for us to do better. Tony Swole, this has been a part of your story, and I'm actually pretty amazed at how real you can be about things and not being offended. What are your thoughts on prison being a big part of this conversation?
Yeah, I most definitely think prison's a big part of it. I think I would say maybe 85% of the government also just how they program things to where bringing in this feminist acts, basically telling a woman that in order to get to get these benefits, you gotta throw the man out the house. So you know what I'm saying? So I think that plays a role in it. I also think just how slavery played a role in it. But at the same time, I know that we still have choices, but when your choices seem like they all bad choices, then whatever choice you choose gonna be bad.
Mm. So yeah,
it's like if you don't really know no better, and this is just this is the norm in everybody's neighborhood, because like in poverty, sex is just one of the things that just go with it. It just seems like it just make you feel better. Cause basically that's just it for some reason. So then you end up wanting to feel better, but you ain't planning to have a kid, but you end up having one, and it just so now your whole life, what you done been doing, haven't been practicing or preparing to be a father, or knowing how to be a father. Then that day you are a father. Now you now everything, the reality hit, like, dang, I don't want this.
Let me ask.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's what you said is true, but I think it's also a mindset thing. When I was 16 and I had my daughter, I remember the OB asking me, so was this a planned pregnancy or no? And I said, well, no. And she said, well, did you use protection? I said, yes. And then she said, okay, well, how did you end up pregnant? And at that point, I didn't realize it until I spoke to her dad later on what had happened. But then she said, well, if you would have said something else, it would have been considered a planned pregnancy. If you would have just had sex and not used a condom or not used contraception, they call that a planned pregnancy. Even though it wasn't my intention to end up pregnant, we just had sex and he didn't pull out in time or whatever the case is. Yeah. They still consider that a planned pregnancy. And I think that's the mindset. Anytime you lay down with somebody, you should always think, okay, I'm going to get pregnant. There's a good chance I could end up pregnant. To me, things happen. There's birth control, but I know people that have gotten IUDs and they end up pregnant, and they're thinking, well, this wasn't planned. Well, there's always multiple. I mean, so that's just my thing. It's a mindset thing. If I'm not married and I'm not ready to have a child, I need to be taking as many steps as possible by either abstinence or celibacy until pretty much abstinence. Until I am ready to say, okay, I'm financially ready, I'm mentally ready, I'm physically ready to have this child. It's just a mindset thing. And I think it does start with, having a father and having a mother in the home that could just show them or show those children what a strong, healthy relationship looks like. And until you have something that remotely looks like that, biblical, or even if it's, if you're not Christian and you're just good people, I think that's something that needs to be infused more, taught more to our children. That's just my opinion. But
why do you think? I feel like I've had a lot of conversations with people who it's almost like if you say that the expectation should be, we should teach young people to be sexually pure, as in like not sexually active until you're married. It's almost like that's ridiculous, right? Like who's gonna really do that, right? And to me, it's like, in my perspective, obviously I'm a Christian and I'm a pastor, but apart from being a pastor, I think to myself, no, it's not good enough just to say, well, just use safe sex or just have sex with somebody you care about. It's like, no. On a statistical level, one, and on a scriptural level, two, it's not just a matter of, just make sure that you love the person. It's like, no. Marriage is the best context for a kid to be born into and to be raised. And why do you guys think it's so hard for people to rock with that message that, no, enjoy sex in the context of marriage, not outside of that? Because when you move that line and you just make it about you love the person or we'll just make sure it's protected, it still comes with so much difficulty, right? Would you agree with that? That still comes with so many challenges? Why do you think it's so hard for people to rock with the message, no sex until there is a ring on the finger, not just an engagement ring, that you're married? Why do you feel like that's so difficult for people to accept, to receive, to rock with?
For one, you horny.
Right?
I mean,
right?
the only way you can get that out is either you masturbate or you get that real deal, and most of the time you want that real deal. I know, like when I was coming up, a lot of times it wasn't like, I guess we was almost trying to get a girl pregnant just to let people know, like, I'm out here really getting this sex. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's almost like a body count. Like, I can tell you that I done ran through 50 women, but I ain't got nothing to prove. So me having a baby, that's gonna like, well, dang, okay, he got a baby, so he must be really, really about what he talking about. For one, so that, cause like I'm playing back when I was in school. That was one way that when you're in poverty, give you something to talk about with the boys. Like, yeah, I done knocked that off, man. She got pregnant. Or then sometimes you even have women that are intentionally trying to get pregnant by you because of your popularity or who you are at the time, and then you know, ain't really trained up to be a father. You know what I'm saying? Mostly my training was to be a player. You know what I'm saying? Wasn't trained to be no father, just trying to be a player. Not this chick down, not that chick down.
Let me ask you this: when you were moving like that, did it ever occur to you that what the future was going to look like for you? Was that even a thought, or was it just flat out like, bro, I'm in the now? I'm trying to.
I wasn't thinking nothing about no future. I was just thinking, you know what I'm saying? I got a baby on the way, and how I can do whatever I can do, whatever I can't do. But like with me, my first two kids, I really did a lot of neglecting, because, you know, I'm 15. Having a baby, so I most definitely wasn't. I didn't even have enough years on earth to even practice on even knowing what a father is. You know what I'm saying? Even if I came from a good family, and I feel like my father was a good father, but I didn't mimic what was in my home. I mimicked what was in the streets, because also you got to remember, bullying with me was another thing that pushed me to want to, you know, please people, because I used to get bullied and picked on. So then, you know, so now it's so much I gotta prove to try to be cool with the people that I thought was cool. So that's what they was doing. You know what I'm saying? Knocking girls down, making money, you know, and then they would give their kids money or whatever. And so I was mimicking that, because I didn't want to get picked on no more. I wanted to be cool. So then, you know, everything that I learned at home, and it was just out the window. So I knew some kind of ways of trying to be a good father, but I didn't practice it enough for it to become a reality in my life.
Miguel, what do you think? Why do you think the message of sexual restraint is something that is hard for people to rock with? Tony saying, because we horny. I mean, we got this energy. We got to do something with it. And I think I'm also hearing you say it's kind of like you weren't thinking about the future. You're just thinking about the present.
Yeah.
Miguel, what are your thoughts? What would you add to that? Why that's hard for us, and obviously that's not unique to Black people. Again, the Urban 100 is a collective of Christians where we're talking real about the issues facing the Black community, and that's something that is important for us as a intentionally diverse church, where we can have the space to be able to keep it 100 about the issues specific to our community. But why do you think, from your perspective, and we can come to you, Queen Mork, next, why do you think that's so hard for people to rock with that message of restraint, as opposed to, just use safe sex, just, you know, just make sure you love her, you know, not to say anybody here is perfect, but just from your honest perspective, why do you think it's so hard to rock with sexual purity? Like, no, until you're married. Why do you think that's so tough?
I think it's hard because really we look at our parents, you know, growing up, and our parents, you know, telling us like, oh, like we had kids when we was teenagers, or when we was like 19 or 20, and we had a kid, and they didn't know how to raise them. And so we just grow up looking at that. So they just already see that as a picture right there.
So you're saying you really don't, for so many of us, we don't see within our own space our parents doing it in a way where it's sexual purity until you're married.
Yeah.
It's you have sex, you enjoy, that's your person, that's your thing, right? That's your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your fiance. I tell you, would y'all, it trips me out when you have people who they're not planning on getting married no time soon, but this is my fiance. Right?
Like, she don't know it yet.
Like, bro, that's been your fiance for about 4 years.
Yeah,
I mean, come
got
on now.
one ring.
Right? I think people people say that because it's like, girlfriend, that's not real enough. You know what I'm saying, right? It's like it's more than that. We're not married yet, but it's more than just girlfriend.
Yeah.
She ain't going nowhere, but she.
Right.
Yeah. And then maybe also just that common law married thing. Common law, you know what I'm saying? Like, well, we've been together, so we basically married without without being an official.
Yeah.
Living on that right there, and maybe that's enough justification to feel like, shoot, we married.
Yeah. Man, there's so much more I want to say about this, but let's get to Queen Morgan. The fam who's with us online, I want to know y'all's thoughts too. Why do you think that is such an unpopular or something that people are not willing to embrace or rock with or even try? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm amazed, as an unmarried man. I was married for 13 years. And, when I had to go different directions, we'll leave that there. But when I had to go different directions, for me, it was clear. Not just because I'm a pastor, but because I'm a Christian. It's like, that means until I'm married again, I don't get the cookies, right? I don't get the good stuff until I'm married again. So that wasn't even an option in my mind. You see what I'm saying? But Queen Moore, what are your thoughts on why sexual purity is something that is just not, it doesn't seem like it's really a realistic option for so many people, especially in the black, I wouldn't say that's exclusive to the black community at all, but it does impact us in a deeper way because so many of us grow up in poverty, so it's going to hit us harder and different,
Two reasons. I think one, the government has made it easy for single black women, single women, regardless of color, to have a baby. And you know what? I can't afford to take care of this baby in the mirror. I'm supposed to, so I'm going to go fill out the paperwork and get my food stamps and get put on WIC and get put on all these different programs. And it almost benefits them more to not be married. Yes. Working in the HR realm, it was a shock to me when I found out that, for the longest time, I thought that single black unmarried women were the minority, but we're actually not the minority anymore. It's actually white males aged 20 to 30 are now the minority because we have shifted all of our funding, all of our programs, all of our scholarships.
Well, when you say the minority of what?
The minority is black. I would be a typical minority, single black unmarried woman with a child.
In what context?
And just
minority as a whole.
As a whole, right? Yeah.
Right.
So, like in HR world, when we say, okay, we're going to give certain grants and certain things like that, especially in the government, you would think I would be one of the first people to qualify for it. But actually, the minority is single, unmarried, white males aged 20 to 30. That's the new minority, because we have given people like me, single, unwed, single mothers, all the funding here that we forget Joe Schmo, whose dad works on a farm, practically has nothing. And now he's disenfranchised because they've given it out to people like me. So I think the government's made it easy. Yeah.
So again, this is why, and I'm not saying this just for shock value, but this is precisely why I personally have such an issue with the Democrat Party, and that's not. I don't make any money from the Republicans. But to me, the messaging of the Democrat Party is so heavy on it's the government's job to take care of people. Right. It's the government's job to assist when people, whatever. And so it incentivizes bad choices. It incentivizes people making bad choices, especially relative to family planning. And it couples with, and it's not our job to tell you how to live. It's like, no, we have a responsibility to make sure people understand you should, before you bring a child into this world, that child should be brought into a world in a context where the mom and dad are married. That's not that complicated.
Yeah, that was my second thing, is that we, say, a lot of black men and women didn't have the example, because again, back in the 70s and 80s, that's when we started, procreating at a high rate. I mean, there were, kids coming out everywhere. But
I don't know what the statistics would be there, but I would actually say no. Before Lyndon Johnson declared war on poverty and incentivized, he said, if you are, as long as there's not a man married to a woman in the home, we're going to give all these resources. Before that happened, we had something like 20% of black families were single parent, just 20%, and that was a cause for a major, like, whoa, this is a problem, right? And we have in 50 years completely reversed it. It went from 20% unmarried to going close to 80%, so 74%. But I don't think the birth rate was much different. I think it's been pretty much the same.
Okay, so if we're saying, we're even at that, I think personally we never had the standard in our home. I think people like my age, I think I graduated with a lot of, kids that are, I'm 37 now, so their parents, they were single.
Super
parents.
young, my goodness.
They were 37, 38, something like that. They didn't have the standard in their home. So, and the parents are like, well, we made it look easy. Someone was telling me, like, they made it look easy, where, I was the only kid in my home. My mom took care of me. We always had what we needed, things like that. But on the flip side of that young woman grew up broken, and now she's got 2-3 kids, 2-3 baby daddies, doesn't know what real love looks like. She's been through abusive relationship after abusive relationship. Right. She's dependent on the government. She's got all these issues, and
which again is connected to, because when you have that father in the home, and we're going to get to the positive in a moment, right. The formational. Okay, what should that look like, and what message do we need to foster and cultivate and get out to more kings and families and communities? But again, when you have a father in the home, even if he's not married to his mother, to that child's mother, which that is God's intention, but when you have that father in the home and he's intentional. And he's showing leadership and love, that little girl is going to grow up. She's going to be attracted to what her father was like. Right. For the most part, she's going to be primarily attracted to what her dad is like. So if her dad is healthy and he's active and he's proactive and he's loving and he provides and he shows respect to that child's mother, she's going to be more attracted to that. But when there's a void there, then she doesn't really have anything to compare that to, or the boy doesn't have anything to compare it to.
She turns to the closest thing to her.
Exactly. So, or in our day and age, of course, it's going to be social media, or it's going to be whoever celebrated, in entertainment. You know what I mean? It's going to be Nick Cannon, who's out here with baby number 10. Right? Or Future, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah. So, okay, so we as a community, we have developed this thing we call the Alpha Essentials, and that's where we say every man needs his own, and we basically share five things. That is legal cash flow. Number 2, swag flow. We're gonna come back to that. 3 is vehicle. 4 is castle, your crib. And 5 is your career. These are the alpha legal career. These are the alpha essentials that it's almost like it might to some sound like, well, obviously, but it's not really obvious, because for a lot of these things, really, we've not had men sharing, this is what a man should be fostering in his life, and the fact of the matter is, and this could sound offensive, but it's not offensive, it's just truth. Past a certain age, a man should have his own. If anything, right. Somebody, his girl, which God intends for you to be married before you're living together, but your girl should live with you, not vice versa.
Right.
Or your mom should live with you, not vice versa. You see what I'm saying? But if we've never had these kinds of real and practical conversations about what a man should be and should have, then a lot of young men don't know, especially coming up in poverty, you know. And it's like, by the time you can start making the right choices and get your life moving in a great direction, you done had some girl down the street, she pregnant, right? And y'all fall out, and you got another girl, and she pregnant now too. And before you know it,
they fight in the street, and y'all falling out too.
You see what I'm saying? I mean, am I right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about those 5 for a minute. One, what would you say, before we kind of dig in here, what would you say is the message that is being sent to young boys about what a man is supposed to do and be? Let's say in the black community at large, obviously there are always exceptions. There are examples that of the anomaly. But what would you say? What was the message you were hearing of, whether it was directly or indirectly? What message were you hearing as far as this is what a man does, this is what a man is supposed to be and do, this is what a man is supposed to have, this is the way a man is supposed to carry himself? What were some of the messaging that you would say, I remember hearing this or feeling this, even though maybe it wasn't necessarily explained? What would you say some of the messaging? Let's start with you, Miguel.
Really just to be strong and really just caring in mostly all situations.
So strong and caring.
Yeah.
But not necessarily concrete guidance on, by the
not,
time you're this age,
yeah.
you need to this, by the time you're this age, you need
not
to that.
exactly specific,
Right.
like nothing like that. It was just, but most of the stuff that was told to me was from like teachers or like coaches, stuff
Right.
like that.
Not necessarily
not my
at
own
home,
parents or,
at the table, this is what it is.
like that.
Because, in the Jewish community, they have what's called a bar mitzvah. So when you pass 13 years old, it's like, son, you are now a man, and this is what a man's supposed to be. It's what a man's supposed to do. It's what a man's supposed to have. This is the path you're supposed to be on. That's something that it's important for us as churches, as ministries, as communities and congregations. We are saying, hey, kings, this is what a man's supposed to be. This is what a man's supposed to do. This is what the path a man is supposed to be on. And we do not apologize for that. Of course not, right? We need men to be strong, and this is what that look like, right? We need men to be caring, but this is what it looks like. We need men to be masculine. This is what that looks like, right? Tony Swole, what would you say? What was some of the messaging you remember feeling, hearing, seeing, embracing? What are your thoughts?
A man ain't supposed to cry.
Okay.
Also, let's trying to think. What did I hear that coming up? Well, I did hear that a man's supposed to have a vehicle, a car, that was stuff like that. But I didn't hear too much about nothing else. I don't remember hearing too much about nothing else. I mean, I could have, but I can't remember if I did or not. So it probably wasn't nothing regular talked about.
Right. So again, maybe more of a void of concrete discussion.
Yeah.
Rather than like, this is what it is.
So basically, the only thing I seen was just you just go to work and work yourself to death and bring that paycheck home.
Right.
Pay bills and sleep. I mean, that's basically what my dad did. 12 hours. You work 12 hours. I don't even think, I don't know what days he was off.
Right.
Then you come straight home. You may sleep 12 hours. You know what I'm saying? My dad ain't getting up until it's time to start getting ready to go to work. So then when we did sit down at the table and have conversations, it'll be normally him maybe getting on me about what I didn't do right, as far as like, you need to get your grades up, or you don't talk back to this person, or didn't I tell you not to do this or do that.
So it was character.
Time to get chastised.
Character conversation, character development, especially by way of correction. But as far as you remember, it wasn't necessarily a lot of concrete guidance on. You need to be, by the time you were 16, you need to have a job. No, you chilling too much. You need a job so you can save for your car. So by the time you turn 17, you have your own car. And when you go to college, you need to be applying for college, thinking about your career. You can go as a freshman with your own vehicle and these kind of things. Not a lot of concrete guidance like that, right? As far as your experience?
Not in the beginning, but like, you know, in the end, when my dad finally got his life straight and he became a pastor, it was more conversations like that. But I was too far gone.
At that point,
I was already gone. I was so it didn't really. It probably did do me some good to hear it, but it didn't do me no good to start acting on it at that point because I'm too deep in the game now. So I'm seeing a whole different something totally different over here that got me too attractive to want to listen to that right there, which I know it makes sense and I trust my dad. I know you tell me the best thing. But I got to get back to that right now. I got to get over here.
So really,
you holding me up because I'm in a rush.
Wow. So really, the timing.
Yeah.
You're saying as far as you're concerned, you really gotta catch it and give it soon.
Yeah.
Early. Otherwise, it can be too late.
Now, it probably was too late at that time, but. It was enough that he planted in me to where his absence is more stronger than his presence because I can still remember what he said, and now me going through the life that I go through now, I understand what you was trying to say. Yeah. So now I'm trying to put it back together and finally mind you in your absence because I didn't mind you in your presence.
Yeah. I think you bring up a great point though, that within the family or in the community, the neighborhood, the village, the church, there has to be at some point on the early side, there has to be a very thorough articulation of what a man is supposed to be, what a father is supposed to be. Otherwise, if you make a baby, when you're 15, 16, 17, the baby's coming up. It's like, well, we're now behind, right? So it's like these are conversations that have to be had all the way up.
Yeah.
As opposed to, now as a 30, 40, 50-year-old, I'm reflecting on what I learned, but now I got 3, 4, 5, 6 kids. And so I really believe that the body of Christ, we have such an important opportunity and responsibility to equip people with these types of understandings along the way, not just after the fact. Quimore, what about you? What are your thoughts on the messaging that you would say, either directly or indirectly, you were picking up or was being kind of given relative to what is a man, what is a father supposed to be?
Yeah.
So, unique situation, my parents were divorced by the time I was in 5th grade. So, but I remember my dad, he never lived more than 10, 15 minutes out of the way. So when my brother, who is about 5 years older than me, would get in trouble, my dad would come, and he was always there, but he would come and they would go off. And when I came back, my brother was, yes ma'am, no ma'am. It was something that happened. But to me, that showed my dad had respect for me, not to whoop my brother in front of me. Men don't get corrected in front of women. That's what it kind of showed me. For my dad, one of the things that it was hard for me to do when I was in middle school, high school, was to call my dad and ask for money, because my mom would always just say, here's money, go, for the softball game, do what you gotta do. But at one point, my dad told me, he said, well, Morgan, when we always remember that I'm your best bet. I'm your dad. I'm going to provide for you. I'm going to take care of you no matter what happens in your life. So seeing my dad always step up, always have, always be, always do, when a lot of the girls on the softball team didn't have their parents, mom or dad there, I could always look back and say that except for maybe 2 or 3 games, my dad was there. My mom, same thing. So it just showed me that a man is always present. Even if mom and dad aren't good, my dad was always present in my life for me. That regardless of what's going on in between the mom and dad, you have to be there for your child. I think there's only one time I called my dad, or twice that I called my dad, that he couldn't be there. And it was disappointing, but I understood because he was working, he couldn't really be there. But my dad showed me that a man protects, a man provides, a man shelters, a man does all the typical man things. And that, yeah, the woman might work, but at the end of the day, my dad still ruled. And my dad was still the top boat in the house. My dad was still the man of the house. And even when my parents split, I think my mother, when it came to me and my brother, would still say, well, what does your dad say about this? Or, you know, what have you talked to your dad? Like, you know, let me know about that. So even her honoring him in his absence, or in the role that she was no longer married to him, showed me a lot about how to honor my former spouse when we divorced. I don't call him my ex because he's still living, but he's not excommunicated, he's not next to anything, he's just my former spouse.
Right.
So
honor.
Yeah, honor, right. My dad showed me that honor, you know, so my mom and dad showed me that.
So I would, you know, for me personally, I would say that there were direct conversations from my mother about the way a man is supposed to carry ourselves, what a man is supposed to do. You know, I remember coming up, one of the things that my mother would say is that a man it's never okay for a man to put his hands on a woman. You know, like that was a very clear message, you know, communicating a man is supposed to be someone who's strong and protects, but never to use that strength to bring physical harm or emotional harm to a woman, right? So that's a very important type of messaging. But I would say we in the Black community, we would do well to have tons of conversations like these, because we don't really have that rite of passage. You know, in indigenous cultures, you have, you know, this idea of, all right, you're gonna go out and kill a wild boar, and if you kill that wild boar and bring it home, now you're a man. You know, and that's a passage. I pass through this experience, and now I'm a man. But we've really lost that in our culture at large, and especially in the Black culture. We don't have enough conversation about what healthy manhood is supposed to be. I think a part of what is competing for that is that we really don't have like, in our culture, there's it's taboo to even say what a man is, like on a biological level, much less what a man is supposed to do, right? So, or what a woman is supposed to do. So that works against us in a lot of ways as well, because we can't even start off saying that there's a difference between men and women, and therefore men are supposed to act and operate in this way. Yeah, what do you think?
I was gonna say, as a single mom to a young man who's 13, I have to be so careful that I don't turn him into a mama's boy.
Facts. Yes.
And I think even since I've been at Hope City, I've actually grown in that, because I think when I very first started coming to the church, RJ was running and he fell and started rolling, and I was like, I can't go out there. He's a boy. He's gonna get bumps and scrapes and bruises. And then about a week ago, he got into a fight, and I was like, I don't need to correct him when there's a gymnasium full of men. I need to let a man, albeit there's no man in there, it's my husband, I need to let a man handle this, because if I do it, it's like, oh, son, it's going to be okay.
Let's talk about that. Matter of fact, let's talk about that, because I actually had the blessing of bringing leadership to that situation. So we have a basketball ministry every Sunday at a gym in downtown. And we're playing, and somebody runs up to me and is like, Pastor Jazz, we need masculine presence right
So
now.
I'm going to go get a man.
Yeah. And so I come and we have RJ and two other boys, a little younger or older?
Younger.
A little younger than RJ. RJ's how old?
13.
13.
And they were 11.
They were 11. Twins. And and so they had gotten into it playing basketball, and they felt like he was, trying to push them around, and they felt like, and he felt like they were pushing him, you know what I mean? And they were like, well, we're not gonna let this older boy, I'm not gonna let this older boy beat up my brother, so they jumping him, you know what I'm saying? But
my baby held his own. Don't say jumping him now.
But RJ was like, he was worked up, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, but for me, I felt like it was important for me to say, look, boys will be boys. Like, let's talk about it. Now, we started off saying, listen, in today's world, it's not just as simple as boys will be boys and let's fight. Let's, knuck if you buck kind of thing. People get killed. Matter of fact, just a few weeks prior, as we know in our city, two young men who were friends got into a fight or about to get in a fight, and it didn't end the right way, unfortunately. But I was explaining that, but as you recall, to me it was important for them to understand, y'all are boys. We're competitive. We're physical. Sometimes we mess around. We might want to fight each other. Mm-hmm. It's not the end of the world. Let's figure out what happened, right? Okay, hey, it's okay. You got mad, you got upset, you might have thrown a couple punches. It's okay. It's okay. Let's talk about it. And it's important, I think, for boys to understand it's okay to be boys, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's okay to be a dude, and we function different. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And yeah. I think that we need more guidance and instruction in this direction. You know what I'm saying? Because. Mm-hmm. Boys are different than girls, you know what I mean? Men are different than women. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a beautiful thing when we embrace that and do it in a healthy way. Mm-hmm. So, as we turn the corner and close, I want to talk about what are some of the things that you would say are important for men, black men, to do and to be and to tighten up on and to do better than what it is that we have here, where, stereotypes don't come from nowhere. Stereotypes come from patterns, you know what I'm saying? And so when people think of a black man relative to being a father, we're typically viewed as a bad father. And I don't think that's necessarily people being racist necessarily, but I think that we see a lot of black men who are terrible fathers, right? Yeah. And many of us have never been taught how to be a healthy father, right? So, what are your thoughts on what a black man who is a father or will be a father, what do you think are some of those things that need to be true of a man who is a father, black or otherwise, that men need to embrace and walk in? Let's start with you, Thomas Will.
I think, for one, maybe the men and women need to know how to be a father and a mother too, because if I'm hearing that I'm a good father because I'm doing what the mother want me to do, it's not necessarily I'm a good father, because a lot of times my baby mamas would brag on me for being a good father because I'm on time with school clothes, I'm on time with the Christmas clothes, mm-hmm. But if I'm late, then I'm not a good father. You know what I'm saying? So you tell me that I'm a good father when I'm on time. So now it's more like my perception of a good father is being on time and jumping to when you want me to do it. Mm-hmm. But it's not necessarily being a father to the kid. It's more mm-hmm. like I'm pleasing you. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like it become mother support, mm-hmm. the child support. Mm-hmm. So I think that need to be addressed. And also, it was one thing that you said about a man, learning a man should not put his hands on a woman, and I agree with that. But then that same household that you come up into, they tell you if somebody hit you, you hit them back. And then now it ain't nobody telling the woman, well, don't you put your hands on the man.
Mm-hmm.
So then now the man get hit and smacked, and if you get hit hard enough, all that woman stuff out the window.
Mm. Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because this is a very real thing, very real dynamic for a lot of people, not just black, of course. So this is what I think it should be. One, I do think women should know, never even attempt to fight a man, for one. Matter of fact, my mother, she expressed that to my sisters growing up, and she said, listen, if worst case scenario happens and you're in a physical situation with a man, do not think that you can go like toe to toe with a man. You just can't. I don't care how small or big he is compared to you. He's a man. So worst case scenario, if you got to make your punches count, you better grab a brick, a bat, something, if that's going to be what it takes for you to be safe. But don't. But she was very big on this, and that was never find yourself trying to tell a man off and hitting a man, because if that man reacts, or it's his reflex to strike you, that's going to be very, very bad news. So don't bring that kind of energy ever to a situation with a man. So that's one. I would say to a man, if he's in a situation where a woman, be it his woman, his wife, whatever, or some woman he don't even know, some situation that becomes physical, I would say that a man should never strike a woman, even if it's to protect himself. He should never strike a woman. If a woman's striking him, he should grab her and restrain her, push her off of him, and remove himself. But if a man ever strikes a woman, it's just absolutely unacceptable. Yeah. And it's just too a man. We carry too much force. I don't care if a woman's fighting me, unless that woman has a gun and I have to strike her in order to neutralize that. Men should never strike a woman, even if she's attacking him. And I think, these are practical situations that I think we should help men, wrap our minds around, so that worst case scenario, we have that understanding. So, but keep going. What else would you say as we close? A man would do well to know, understand, and embrace. This is what a man, it's not just about being black, of course. This is what a man, this is what a father is supposed to be like. What would you say that is?
I would say God, embracing him.
That's good.
Because even if you do everything that you feel or what people say you've been a good father, the eternal part, like you said, and that we're gonna be dead longer than we live. I can be a good father and give you everything, give you good advice and everything, but then I can also lead you straight to hell.
Facts. So you would say it's critical for a father to be centered on the father.
Yeah.
That's good.
Because just like my child need that guidance, I'm a child of God, so I need that guidance too, because I need to know how much love I should give this child, and then I need to know how much I shouldn't give, because I could also be killing a child's future because I'm giving too much. You know what I'm saying? I'm feeling like, because when you self-medicate yourself through your kids, now you're going like, well, I didn't have this when I was growing up. So you give them everything, and then how can they learn how to become something if everything's given to them? So I think with the Lord, putting the Lord in there for that perspective, to know, to listen, to like, if the Lord put on your heart, do this. If the Lord put on your heart not to do that. And I just learned that from a T.D. Jakes sermon the other day.
Wow. Hey, I love that. Even think about the power of that.
Yeah.
You probably watching that on your phone.
Yeah.
But he said something that you heard, and it resonated with you, and now it's literally contributing in a positive way to your life, which is why these conversations are so important.
Yes.
Because we have the power to, I think the most powerful way to make an impact is to contribute, not control, but to contribute to the way a person thinks. So Bishop T.D. Jakes did that through a phone, and it helped you to say, wow, yeah, and it contributed positively to your life. Let's go to you, Miguel. What would you say men, and in this case, we talk specifically in the black community, but men in general, would do well to embrace and to be and to do as men and as fathers? What should that look like?
I think it looks like more leadership, really, and not going against what everybody else is doing, and not trying to follow everybody else, and just being a leader and going against what everybody's doing, and not trying to be a follower,
So
Yes.
I love that. I'm gonna share some thoughts here in a moment, but what I'm hearing you say is that a man should have a man's mind. That I'm an alpha, right? Alpha says I'm the head here. I'm the head of my own life. Of course, the Lord Jesus, for Christians, is the head of our life. But apart from the Lord, I do what is right and what's best for me. I'm not following the crowd. Love it. All right, Queen Moore, what would you say is important for men to embrace and to cultivate as men, as fathers?
I believe, and this might be a little girly, but I think men need...
Oh my goodness!
So, I like this right here. If I were not here, I think men need other men that are like-minded, kingdom-minded. If you're kingdom-minded, you need other kingdom-minded men. Because no matter who we are, we're prone to kind of go left when we should be going right. But if I can have my brother pull me back on track and say, hey man, what you did to old girl wasn't right. Someone, because we don't have a father, we just need someone that understands, that's like us. That's why representation is so important. It's one thing for a black girl to tell another black girl something, but it's totally different when a white girl tells a black girl something, because she's thinking, well, you don't even know where I've been through because you're privileged. So if I'm a man and I have someone that's been in my shoes or can sympathize or empathize with me, but is on the right track, we need other people like us to help us. So I think it's necessary for men to understand that it's okay to not have it all worked out, all figured out. But if I can call my brother, whether he's my pastor, if I can call my brother where he's just like a good man that's got, we grew up together in the hood, but he's, out of it and he's doing well to do for himself right now. Someone that can say, man, I've been there, let's pray together, let's go to breakfast and have coffee, or let's go work out and let's talk about these kind of things. Men need other men. We all need a community of some sort. So like I have women that I call when I'm down in the dumps or whatever. Why can't men open up and say, man, bro, I'm struggling right now. Like, oh girl, I wanted to just, go off. I just wanted to leave. But man, no, don't leave. Stay right there. Like, let's talk about this. You don't have to leave to prove that you're a man. You don't have to leave to do this. Work it out. So I think men need other strong men.
Yeah, I believe that too.
Yeah,
I believe that too.
I think that's a word right there. I would completely agree.
That most definitely lacks, because like I remember at one time, well, I guess before I was born, they did have like leaders that could be a voice for the black community, like Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. But now we don't really have that.
Right.
So you know what I'm saying? So we still have it on a local thing, maybe through our pastors, but we don't have that right there, that national thing like they once had of a just to coach you through. Right. So I most definitely agree with what you're saying, that
role models, they need somebody.
I think we do have role models, and I do think we on a large scale, but it's just not as clear and righteous as it was.
Yeah.
I think when you have Dr. Martin Luther King, you have Malcolm, these were leaders that, because of the bigness or the magnitude of the challenges that we were facing, it forced leaders to the top, and therefore we could look to them and say, that's a man, right? But we do have leaders today, but they're not righteous. We do have leaders, but they're just they're not championing a message, I think, that is truly rooted on God. But they are. I mean, think about it. We were just joking a few minutes ago about Nick Cannon. Like, that is actually sending a message to the masses. What is that message? yeah, smash as many chicks as you can, right?
Yeah.
And if you got enough
So
money,
be it.
yeah, if you got enough money, as long as you got enough money to take care of your kids, cool. It's like, well, that's actually not the right message, right?
Yeah.
And bringing a kid into the world is more than just, hey, me and your mom, we like having sex together and we're friends, and so we're gonna partner in raising you. It's like, no, that's terrible. That's not okay, right? And there are others. So I think we do have many examples and role models. We just don't necessarily call them that. But I think that we would do well to have more conversations that are concrete like this. So yeah, that's kind of my thought there. I'll close with this. I think that along with a lot of what we have shared, I would say again, I think that what men need is structured guidance and encouragement, and to say, hey, this is what it looks like to be a healthy man, and we're not going to apologize for that. This is what manhood looks like. Also, I would say that, we use the alpha essentials. That's just one way to put it. But I do think every man needs his own legal cash flow. Like, every man needs his own money coming in. And every man needs his own style. Like, it's interesting that even between the three of us, we have different swag flow, right? And we're all men, but that's dope. Like, every man should have his own style where he feels good about the way he looks. That's something for a man to embrace and to figure out and to dial in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think men would do well to embrace that. And boys need that. Especially when you're transitioning from elementary to middle school. That's where it's like you got to start. Boys need to know from men, like, hey. And we have students in our student ministry, and we have to have real conversations to say, hey, listen, this is what a young man should smell good. A young man should have his hair cut. A young man should, you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, don't be going back to school looking the same. It's like, no.
I know, come on,
right?
it's a message.
But these are things that fathers and leaders in the village need to be sharing with the young kings coming up. It's like, listen, your body's gonna start changing, and these girls are gonna start looking good, and you gotta position yourself. Obviously not for the wrong things, but you gotta position yourself to respect yourself, for people to take you seriously. So you need to make sure that your swag is on point, your drip is on point, your hygiene is great, that you take care of your teeth, your hair, those kind of things. I think men need to have their own money. Men need to have, not rely on a woman and her check and her food stamps, right? Men need to have their own style. I think men need to have their own vehicle that they're proud of. Where I think every man should have a membership at the car wash. I do. I think that every man's car should be clean. You know what I'm saying, inside and out. I think every man should have his own place, his own crib, right? Where, I get transition, I get hard seasons because I've been there, of course. But every man should have his own place. And in my opinion, I shouldn't say my opinion. It's not okay for a man to indefinitely be living with anybody else. A man needs his own place, and he needs to do whatever. Matter of fact, it's been said this way by some of the coaches I follow online. It's like, look, if you're not working 60 hours and you broke, you're lazy. Because if you're broke, then you need to work your behind off, even if it's at McDonald's making $12, $13, $14 an hour times 60 hours. You're not broke now. Like, so unless you're working 60 hours, you should not be broke, period. And so a man needs his own crib. And in his crib is his castle, and it's his kingdom. And you should keep it up and feel good about that, and to be able to invite people into your home and feel good about that. But when a man has to live with his woman, when a man's living with his girlfriend or his woman or whatever, or with his, it's in her name, right? Of course, we stress God intends for people to be married before they live together. But a lot of us have never been raised even with that understanding. So we want to be gracious and gentle with that. But a man, the home should be in his name, right? The house should be in his name. And at the most, it should be joint, right? But a man needs his own house, and one of the reasons I think men feel they don't respect themselves or they feel disrespected or not respected is because where they live is hers. It's her house, you know what I'm saying?
She can put you out.
Right. Or it's like, sleeping on mom's couch or on baby mama number 2's couch or whatever. It's like, no, that's not good enough. But every man should also have a career and a sense of purpose in life. Every man should know this is what God put me on the planet to do. That would be calling. But when you're in the process of your calling, you should have a career that is working in conjunction with your calling. And prior to me working my behind off to be able to pastor, to serve as a pastor full time, I had to put work in. I mean, this has not been easy, and it's not easy now. But in the process, I was always moving in that direction. So everything was a servant to my calling. You see what I'm saying? And men need to know that. And so I believe one of the reasons a lot of men are, and I work with brothers like this as a pastor and as a trainer, and part of my training is not just personal training and fitness, but it's growth coaching. And so with all my clients, I have a growth coaching call every week. And we talk about life and career and purpose and passion. And, I find that a lot of men are living so low, so far below their potential that they don't have enough going on in their life to bring that lion out. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So if you can just exist, then yeah, you just kind of chilling. But I tell you what, we got it. Of course.
So
of course.
I text you because I have my 1% on my phone. But I was just thinking the reason that a lot of this is happening is because growing up, young men have seen their mother carry the brunt of the weight.
Facts.
Then a man comes into the equation. The mom doesn't want to move because their kids are settled. They move in with the mom, and then they think that that's the way the life is supposed to be.
Facts.
I mean, a lady and she got kids. I'm just gonna move in with them.
You got it.
And I just.
You got it, but if we can establish
the right order,
yep. And you say, and this is what it's got to be. It's like, look, you dating my mom. That's right, and I think the world of your mom. But it's like this: that man should have his own place, and mom, she has her place, and that whole scenario. But it should be that this family can move in with him, or they can both, maybe she's got a better situation and he moves in there, but it's not until you're married.
Right.
And when you're married, now the kids see that there is a sobriety involved in this. They see that, they're sober-minded about the bigness of bringing your life together, and like you being with my mom is a big deal. It's not just, we're dating, they see us kissing, hear us doing stuff in the bed, yada, yada. Oh, now they broke up. It's like, no.
Not near my house.
But, and I'll just close this with a couple more. And this is, of course, a very important conversation that's, worthwhile. It's bigger than just one conversation. But I believe that a man, healthy man and father, is one who walks with growing sexual responsibility and righteousness. That is so important. A man who can control and be in command of himself sexually is an unstoppable man. It absolutely critical. It's just critical that men, we embrace that. I had a brother today tell me, he said, bro, I'm just a sexually charged man, and I have to be married because it's just hard for me. I was like, we're all sexually charged. I'm sexually charged. But I have learned and am continuing to learn to take that sexual energy and to direct it towards my goals, but not to be out here slamming chicks, right? because that kind of thing, it creates so many problems. But that sexual energy is powerful. And when we learn, I practice something that I'm going to be leading a group of men, whoever want this work, who want to learn how to win over porn, self-pleasure, and sex outside of marriage. I am going to be leading I wouldn't call it a course, I'd say it'd be a collective, and teaching brothers on a larger scale what God has helped me to learn as an unmarried man. It's not easy. Any man that can go 7 days, this is the Urban 100, so let's be 100. Any man that can go 7 days without releasing his energy, that's or a woman. And I'm just speaking for men right now, and I am a man. I identify as a man. Just kidding. Any man that can learn to retain and redirect his sexual energy for 7 days, that's a big deal. That's very rare, and it's not easy. But when you learn to do that, and you turn that 7 days into 8, 9, 10, and growing, it will make you an extremely powerful person. And this is something that I think men would do very well to learn, especially as fathers. I'll share just one more, and then that'll be our time
So
for tonight.
when you saying that means no ejaculation and nothing?
Yes. And I want to say it's not that I think that is easy.
Yeah.
I know that's not easy, especially when you've gone from being married and you have those blessings, and now you're not. And it's been a process for me to learn. But I'm telling you from experience and what I walk to this day presently, when you learn, it's a process, to have command over your sexual energy, and even self-pleasure and release is something that you're in command of, it makes you powerful. I'm talking magnetic. I'm talking your mind works at its potential. I'm talking your testosterone raises, so you're getting gains in the gym. I'm talking countless benefits, not to mention your connection with God. I'm telling you, when you go without releasing, this is the Urban 100, y'all. When you go without releasing, as a man, I can't speak for a woman, obviously, but when you go without releasing, your connection to God goes through the roof. And your connection with yourself goes through the roof. And you will emit a positive, righteous energy about yourself that will serve you very well. So I'm glad God never gave me the, oh, it's okay, it's better to do this than to do this, right? I'm glad that God never gave me a kind of a permission, if you will, to just, it is what it is, because in that tension, what I love to share with brothers like yourselves and others is it's almost like a secret to life. And all the great, I shouldn't say all, but many of the great high achievers in the world who are men, they learn to retain their sexual energy. Mike Tyson went something like 5 years without releasing. If you see footage of him, he was 5'11", dogging 6'5", 6'6" monsters. And if you see the fierceness in his eyes, you can't pretend that. You can't produce that and act like, you see what I'm saying? That was a fire that was burning inside of him because he was not releasing that sexual energy. And he was directing it towards his goals. And this is a very powerful blessing from God that men, we would do very well to learn. And I teach with great grace because I need grace, and it's a process. And again, it's not easy. It's not easy to go 2 days, much less 7, much less, beyond that. So it's something though that would turn men into absolute beasts if we would first embrace the reality that it's possible and it's actually powerful. But the last thing I'll say is one thing that a woman can't teach her son is how to carry himself like a man emotionally. Now that's something that I do think that women can teach their boys certain principles about manhood. A man is supposed to provide. A man is supposed to this, a man is supposed to that. For time's sake, I'll just say it this way. Men should, as fathers, black men and otherwise, should be those that carry ourselves emotionally as a balanced alpha. That means we're not an a-hole. Alpha don't mean a-hole. Alpha means the buck stops with me. And I'm balanced in that. And I use my strength as a man to serve others so that others might flourish under my headship. That's balanced alpha. And we're built to do that, and it's very difficult for a woman to teach a man how to do that as a boy, as a woman raising a boy. So we need fathers to be balanced alphas emotionally. And when we're balanced in that way, everything falls into place. And we look at our queen, we look at our woman if we have one, and we say, I want to serve and love her. I want to help her dreams come true. And I want to provide for these kids and for my community members and my family. And I want to see everybody flourish because I'm handling my business. You know what I'm saying? That's what a balanced alpha is supposed to be. And we need fathers to do that. And if black men could step into that more, our families and our communities would change, dare I say overnight. But it's not overnight because it takes time for men to learn these things. Okay. So Jesus is the greatest balanced alpha of all time. And we all people, Jesus said, go into the world, make disciples of all nations. And all people, we all universally have the perfect example of what a phenomenal man looks like. And that is the Son of the Father, Jesus himself. So let's keep talking about this. And this is what we do with the Urban 100. So let's make some noise. God bless you, everybody. If you're watching this later, if you'd like to be a part of a church where we keep it 100, but it's in truth and in love and in grace. We are part of a church called Hope City Fellowship, which is here in Asheville, and it is a difference-making, disciple-making, intentionally diverse church where we keep it real about life in Christ, and we're blessed to belong to God through Jesus. So that is our time. We will be back with much more with the Urban 100. God bless you. We can't wait to see you at the next one. Peace. Make some noise.